Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Wilkinson, Manager of Communications and Media with Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency. Today, the SPSA will provide a technical overview of the wildfires in the province. Joining us online to provide an update is the SPSA's Vice President of Operations, Steve Roberts. We have a hard stop at 2 p.m., so we ask members of the media to ask one question, and if we have time remaining in the meeting, we'll go to follow-ups, but we do have a hard stop at 2. With that, I will turn it over to Steve Roberts for our update. Steve?
Thanks, Stephanie. Good afternoon. Currently in Saskatchewan, we have 19 active fires. So far this year, there has been 267 wildfires. Last year at this time, our 5-year average at this time would have been 162 wildfires. Changes to date from a fire activity have been progress. We have received some favorable weather. Crews have been active on these fires. We have seen an increase of containment. Shoe fire is now listed at 50% contained. The Pisu fire at 30% contained. Wolf fire at 30% contained, and the ditch fire at 80% contained. Ditch fire was listed as fully contained, but over the weekend they had some fire activity on the far north end, so they've changed the status and moved some crews in to work on that northern fringe of the fire. So Highway 912, 927, and 167 remain impacted by these fires, and you can see that on the highways hotline. So you would experience roadblocks and limited access because of that. We have seen no changes to the values reported as confirmed burned by fire. So that number remains today at 1,931. Good news, though, is we have seen a change to the evacuated numbers. So Denair Beach and Creighton have allowed their non-medical folks to return over the weekend. So that means there's only medical staff, medical citizens who need to have medical supports away. And that's the same for Cumberland House. So at this time, the Public Safety Agency is supporting 46 individuals who have a medical need concern and cannot return at this time. The community of East Trout Lake remains evacuated. Access is still being worked on before those folks can come back to the site and view their properties. The recovery task team is functioning, and actually members of that team are on their way to Creighton as we speak. They will be meeting with local leadership to start that process on looking at recovery in the Creighton area and also for areas like East Trout Lake. So there will be discussions happening province-wide. Change that has occurred is the 855 line is still available. People have concerns, but because most people have repatriated and because food and subsistence checks and the $500 support checks from the federal government are being distributed, I know it to this date over $3.8 million worth have been delivered to communities for distribution. So because of that reduced number, we are going to see the 855 line reduce to 8 o'clock to 1,700 daily instead of it was available till 2,200 prior. And just the other note for those want to know about who we have for support, Arizona, Colorado, Washington, South Dakota, and the U.S. Forest Service staff continue to work with us on some of these fires, including our own staff, our Type 2 firefighters from our northern communities, and our Type 3 firefighters, all continue to work on these fires and taking advantage of the cooler, moister weather. And as a result, I think we see a much better situation today. And with that, I'll turn it back for questions.
Thanks, Steve. So now we'll open it up to any questions. Jeremy?
Yes, hello. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Just to clarify, those 46 individuals with medical needs, that's just from the Denair Beach Creighton area, correct?
No, that is for all of the folks who are receiving
Oh,
services, regardless of location, by the public safety agency. Some may still be with family and friends, and others may be with Red Cross at this point. But those are the ones currently being supported. All of them are medically related, and all of those by the public safety agency.
okay. Just a question then. So, what supports are in place for people whose primary residences were destroyed by wildfire, and how long would those supports continue?
It is one of the questions that the recovery task team is working on. Again, many people who have insurance also have supports that are provided by their insurance in the event of a structure house, like for instance, a structure loss. So some will be relying on that. Some will be staying with families and friends until they can get back to their homes and return to them. But for those that don't, that's one of the questions the recovery task team will be looking at, is what other supports might be available for those individuals.
Thanks, Steve. Up next, Susan.
Hi, my question is kind of related to Denair Beach. They lost a significant number of homes there, and I've seen some comments online from residents that still don't feel like it's easy to get through to the SPSA or the Red Cross or whoever it is. They still are feeling some frustration and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering if there's can you go over what exactly is happening out there as far as help for those people?
So we have addressed anybody who's called and registered with the line that they needed financial supports. We have moved those. In addition, on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week in Creighton, we will be hand distributing any checks related to those residents who have returned now. Maybe they were families and friends or in other locations. But when they return, we'll be distributing checks right in the town of Creighton. And then I'm just confirming Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And those are the $500 checks and any outstanding food security support checks. So there's a level of support they will be able to obtain once they return, which most of them have. And they can actually talk directly to our staff who are there in Creighton about if there's other issues where they were previously registered, or they may have issues of, again, that their check is incorrect or they don't have a check waiting for them. So we can address that with them, if they show up, in Creighton. And we did that again, the same type of event in La Ronge. So there were some people that showed up to receive sustenance checks. However, they weren't registered. So we registered them so that we could generate a check.
Thanks,
Okay,
Steve.
thank you.
Up next, Alec. Alec, a reminder to identify your outlet. Thank you.
Sure. This is Alec. It's along with the Regina Leader Post. I guess, Steve, if you could just tell us a little bit about what we might anticipate for the rest of the season. It's encouraging to hear some of the relief from the cooler, wetter weather, but what can we anticipate for the rest of the summer?
Well, we're halfway. All this activity, but we're only halfway through the fire season. We're seeing our neighbors west of us having increased fire activity. So we're not done yet, but it does change our strategy somewhat now that we have a handle on some of these larger fires. Is we will be moving some of our staff back into what we call initial attack. So that is a primary response to a reported fire. So in other words, we get a chance to go in and assess it. If it's small enough at the time, we can go in and actually put it out. If it's going to take some more resources, we can then deploy them and stack those in. So that part of our program will get a little heavier as we come out of this wetter area and back into more regular fire patterns and weather patterns. So there'll be that, but that doesn't mean that we will be, walking away from these other fires. They will continue to have staff, whether we have to bring some in, whether we can use EFPs, our Type 3 firefighters, plus any staff that aren't currently engaged in an active wildfire. We will rotate those through to make sure we have those fires continue to receive the focus and get them fully contained if at all possible before anything happens and as far as a drier windier period that may cause some problems.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Oh, some question in the chat. Arjan from the Daily Herald. My question is, since SPSA plays a key role in public safety and wildfire risk management, has there been any discussion either within the agency or with other departments about promoting fire-resistant building materials like stone or concrete in high-risk areas as a safety measure to reduce loss in future wildfires?
So the Public Safety Agency does look after all emergency management aspects. That includes prevention and mitigation, as it's called, which is really the things that can be done before an event happens. So whether that's a flooding event or wildfire, we have some programs. We work with communities to make emergency plans, and it addresses certain things. Access. Do you only have one road in and out? Because then your issue may be is lack of access due to a fire or a flood that takes a bridge out. We also have a program that's called Fire Smart, and it has lots of tools that can be done individually. So an individual resident can take actions, and you heard a little about that in Candle Lake. They actually got some extra people, and they went and they cleaned up around people's houses, removing branches, propane tanks that are against the outside of the building. All of those are hazards that would impact our level of success should a fire occur. Now, those can be done even if there is no fire threat. So they're an annual event. People can clean around their cabins, clean around their houses, and it goes as far as what is preferred, what is the ideal, and maybe that's a metal roof. We've seen a fair number of cabins that were lost this year, even though they were on an island, which surprises people. Well, how did they burn down on the island? But because embers travel, if they're being blown by the wind and they get to an island and get the opportunity exists for them to blow underneath the deck and the structure where it's bone dry, that's typically where a fire would start. So what it does, it starts underneath the cabin because that's all super, super dry fuel, never gets any snow, never gets any rain. So if embers can get in there, that's an opportunity. The other one is if you have gutters and you have trees around, and even if you prune them off, leaves and needles get to the houses, and people can take the precaution of making sure their gutters are clear and they don't have this dry material right in the gutter, right beside the roof line. And then other options, many varieties of options of what people can do related to protection, whether those are small sprinkler setups that they can clip to their eaves trough, whether there's a pump and hose if they're at a lake. And so there are certain things that can be done. And, we have a very big program, and it's right on our website if people are interested to see what options are available to be preventative and to avoid this kind of loss whenever we can.
Thank you, Steve. And I'll do a final call out for any more questions. Okay, looking like we have no further. That concludes our media availability for today. Have a safe rest of your day, everyone.